What up, though, everybody? It's your boy Shane G. We are back again with another episode of OTI, Open to Interpretation, right here on the Ethos Media Network. As always, you know how we do. We're gonna start the show off with a little bit of clip. We're talking about privilege today, y'all. We're talking about privilege, different types of privilege, who has privilege, how it affects you, how it affects other people, all that good stuff. Man, we're gonna get into it. Let's get into the clip.
Some people are born into families where they have to walk miles just to get water. All I have to do is turn on a faucet. That's privilege.
If you have ever tried to change your speech, if you were embarrassed about your clothes or house, if you would never think twice about calling the police when trouble is.
I think privilege is when some people have some things and other people don't have things.
I feel privilege is something that you don't even really have control over.
I think it'd be silly for me to say I don't have a fair amount of privilege, considering like the country I live in and the job I get to do and the college I was allowed to go to.
I suppose being a white male will help me end up somewhere towards the front, but I'll take a few steps back from being gay.
I don't think I'll make it to the front. I think I'll maybe be in the middle. That's just a gut feeling I have.
If your parents work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back. If you get
All right, so y'all kind of get where that's going. You can definitely check out the full video. Very interesting. I've participated in things like this at different like schools and different classes and things like that I've taken. So we're gonna go ahead, open up the conversation. Bring the homies on. You already know I got the homie Twan. I got LOF Lack of Flaws. Fellas, how we doing today?
What's good?
I'm good, bro.
What's poppin'?
Good. Oh man. So we created a little bit of a buzz last week, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. And Twan, you definitely, I feel like have some thoughts about this. So first I just want to start off asking you, do you think you have any societal privileges?
Oh,
And
societal privileges.
Yeah, let's start there. Do you think you have any societal privileges?
Maybe in certain situations, being a male, my gender could be a privilege in certain situations. Societal, that's about all I can think of is that. Now, if you want to think of like worldly, I don't want to get all into that because, different countries have different standards of living. So being an American could be a privilege in itself. But if you want to just talk about where we're at here in America, maybe in some situations I could have a privilege, maybe, of being a man in certain situations. But then in certain situations, that's not a privilege. That could be a disadvantage. But my gender is about the only one I could think of.
All right. Flaw, what about you, man? Do you find yourself enjoying any privileges in society, like societal privileges, because of any identifiers that you carry, such as being a man or such as anything like that, or speak on that?
I mean, I feel like nothing aside. I mean, I think the man comment that Twan made was fair. I may experience some things being known in certain segments, in certain areas, like being able to get in certain places and stuff like that.
But not to cut you off, Flaw, I don't think that's a privilege. That was earned. When I think of privilege, I think it's just something.
Let me ask you this:
you
can
wake
you
up
earn
to
privilege?
That's what. Okay, so that goes directly to what Twan is saying. Go ahead, Twan. Finish.
Yeah.
No, I just think that's not a privilege. You earned that. You know what I mean? You put in work and connections and standing on your word or whatever it might be to be able to get in certain places. That wasn't a privilege. A privilege would be you're Warren Griffin, son of Ken Griffin, and you're getting in because of something that basically you had nothing to do with. That could
Yeah,
be
I
your
mean,
beauty, that could be your race, that could be your gender. Like some things that you have nothing to do with. That's when I think of privilege.
I mean, now and again, there are people that I've never done anything for that view me a certain way that still will extend that same courtesy. So that's why I will say some days that's a privilege. Some days it's like, oh, I perceive you a way, so I'm going to give you this. No different than a man perceiving a woman to be beautiful and deciding to buy her a drink. I didn't always do anything. I can't control if you perceive me a certain way that I'm not supposed to stand in this line, or if you perceive that I'm supposed to get faster service because I came in here with my sunglasses on and I look like me. So you perceive me a certain way, so now you handle me differently. Or I got a story real fast, and I never interrupt this and have story time. So my cousin G was getting married, and one of his homeboys, his name is Bo. So Bo, we're all dressed up. We have our suits on, and Bo hadn't really worn a suit based on where we're from because we had that lack of privilege. We were underprivileged in that regard. So we go into a 7-Eleven. We're walking in the door, and there's this older white gentleman who sees us walking in our tuxes and whatnot. And the white man stops. He looks at Bo, and he says, "I'm gonna hold the door for you today." You see what I'm saying? He didn't say those words, but he analyzed the situation and said, "You know what? No, I'm gonna hold the door for this gentleman here." Now, Bo was like, "Damn, I've never felt that exchange of a person being like, oh no, man, you look great. Go ahead and move. You go in front of me." He had never experienced that. And it was only because he had on a tux that day. And it made him feel he carried himself a different way because of the way he felt about himself. Being able to look at himself in the mirror and be like, damn, I clean up very well. And that energy was that energy transcended into the people that he came in contact with that day. So I just wanted to put that out there as why I do believe that people's perception of you plays into privilege.
And yeah, like, so Twan, do you think that privilege is automatically something you're either born with, or like basically it's something that's given to you? It's not something that can be earned. Is that pretty much?
Well, I guess I'm kind of, I can see both sides.
Because let me give you just a quick example. Let's say somebody's parents, worked hard to get them out the hood, right? And so they raised their kid in the suburbs in a better school, already giving them a slight head start over where they came from. But then they themselves still have to, maintain certain grades and things like that to go to college. So they're still putting in their own work, but the privilege of them living in the suburbs versus living in the ghetto could mean that they're getting a way better education than they otherwise would have got. So is that not a privilege in itself, even though they still got to do work? You feel me?
To me personally, I think a privilege a little deeper than that. I think that could just be an advantage of your parents making a certain amount of money and being able to move you into a certain area, which may, come with certain schools and better. I don't know if that's necessarily a privilege. Like when I think of like privilege, I think of like white privilege or pretty privilege or male privilege, like things that's kind of like out of your control. Like whether you're, whether a woman is rich or poor, if she's pretty, it's a privilege to that. Whether you're poor or rich, if you're white, that's a privilege to that. So to me, it's like when I think of privilege, I think of things that kind of go beyond class. And even though there is a classism, which some people would consider privilege, like I'm rich, so I get different lawyers, I know judges. So it gets kind of deep. Me personally, I just think
privileges at its surface. Like genuinely, those are privileges.
Do you think advantages and privileges are two separate things? And if so, can you explain the difference?
I think it's a fine line. I think Twan is over there toiling back and forth because it is tough. It is
Mhm.
real tough to really try to parse those two. That's tough. Like an advantage, what's the difference between an advantage and a privilege?
Well,
Other than
okay, and that,
other
but
than
see,
the mentality of the person that's having it happen to them.
that's kind of the point I'm making. When I think of privilege, sometimes I think people be unaware of privilege, and sometimes they be aware of it. But when I think of a lot of privileged people, sometimes they be very unaware of their privilege. To whereas advantages, like I'm pretty sure LeBron James knows that he has a physical advantage over most human beings. Like he's 6'9", 270. I'm pretty sure
Man, you
he's
gonna
aware of
stop
that.
bringing LeBron James into every goddamn conversation.
Hey man, look, you
I'm
know it's
not
hard.
doing this with you
It's
today.
hard.
That's not
It's
what
hard.
I'm doing.
It's hard not to bring the GOAT in, man. Like that's the
Oh,
truth.
oh man, don't
It's
get me
hard not to bring the
started.
GOAT in. It's crazy, man. Like
He's
LeBron just the GOAT, man. Like, damn, he did something else Jordan never did, man. He got
what?
his
Yeah,
son signed to Nike. How Jordan's sons ain't signed to Nike?
because Jordan isn't.
They hooped.
They wasn't
They
that
hooped.
good. It just wasn't that good.
Oh, I don't
That's
know.
okay too.
But
Can that
back,
not be okay?
no, that's fine. His sons are mega successful, man. I wish him all the best. But like I said, back to the privilege thing, I just think me personally, it is a fine
Bronny is
line between.
privileged.
It is a fine line between privilege and advantage.
Put the camera back over here. Is Bronny privileged?
I don't really know.
We're sitting right here, right now, talking about Shane. Put all three of us back up. We're sitting right here, right now, talking and having a conversation about privilege. You just brought up a young man.
This why.
Hold on,
this
wait.
why
You brought up a young man who we know for certain is going to inherit north of $500 million because he got siblings. So my question to you is, whether he woke up and did anything and he's doing this thing as an athlete, is that an advantage or is that privilege?
I think
because
it's more.
He doesn't have to do anything.
I think a lot of it is probably. I really think it's a blurred line, but I think it's more of an advantage in this sense. Like LeBron, obviously, Bronny James has the privilege to at 17 get trained probably by the best trainers in the world, right? But he's also not the only kid that has that advantage, and a lot of them aren't doing as well as him. So it's kind of like I'm kind of torn on it, man. Like, to be honest, like
he took advantage of his privilege. Can we go there? Is that fair?
I don't know. You know what I really think?
Not in a bad way. Now, first off, that's not a bad thing. Taking advantage of the privilege that you've been granted that you have no control in.
It's smart.
Bronny had no control over his dynamic of who he was born to. He had no control in that shit. He had no control
absolutely.
And his dad was LeBron James. So if he takes advantage of being able to go to the gym with his dad, if he takes advantage of there being an NBA trainer at his house at 4:45 a.m., I'm not knocking him for it. It doesn't change the fact that it's privilege because you can go downstairs and it's an NBA trainer and it didn't cost you a dime.
You know what I realized? This is what I realized. What makes something an advantage and what makes something a privilege, the more I think about it, it's literally just the eyes of the beholders. Because the have-nots say it's a privilege, but the people that have it say it's just an advantage. So it's literally the eyes of the beholder. Like,
so you just think, would you just say that privilege has a negative connotation to it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Speak on that. Why do you think that is?
Because I think that comes from an American system that's set up in classism, and like people at the bottom be thinking, you know, like the phrase, man, you started 10 steps ahead and everything like that. It's like some people be like, man, if I just had that advantage, I would be further ahead in life. And it's not really fair. I think that when people start calling it not fair, it's when they start looking at things like privilege is a negative connotation.
Flaw, what's your thoughts on it? Where do you think the negative connotation of the word privilege came from?
I think it's multi-layered. Yeah, I think you started having people. Well, first and foremost, I don't think this actually was a conversation that started at the bottom. If we're gonna be real, you want to know who made that uncool to be privileged, so to speak? Some rich people that got it by themselves, first generation rich people, made that like, oh, you got it, but I went and got it. You got it, but I went and got it. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not about, I don't think the poor people had any voice in that conversation whatsoever. I really believe it was a conversation between some rich people, and you get into how much do you have, but then you get into, yeah, but how you got it? Oh, your daddy gave it to you. Oh, you inherited that. Oh, you ain't even spending your daddy's money. You spending your daddy's money. Y'all ain't did shit in 2 generations. Like, people get into that conversation, but that's well beyond that lower class of people who's just upset talking about it being privileged. I don't believe that those people barking at the top made any impact on whether or not somebody wanted to be privileged, quote unquote, or not. Everybody wants the advantage, but everybody also wants respect. And you want the respect of, even if I did have this, that's why I said I do believe it's okay for a person to take advantage of their privilege. Because at that point, you're still doing something. I couldn't control what I was born with. I can't control
That's
that.
why I brought up the going to school in the suburbs versus going to school in the hood example, because that in itself can be looked at as a privilege, but then what you do with that still determines how far you as an individual
Right.
are going to go.
I still gotta go to class. I still gotta do the work.
Right. Twine, you there? You look frozen.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, for sure.
No,
for
that
sure.
nigga just stoic. That nigga just looks stoic today. You all stoic.
Real serious. I understand, man. So I just want to throw this out there, and I think to answer the question I just posed to y'all, and you just give me your thoughts on it. I think a lot of it came from two things that I noticed. One, it came from when they attached the word white to it, and white people didn't like it. I think the whole word privilege kind of got spun negatively at that point, because then we started but people started attaching it to a bunch of different things. You know what I'm saying? Like you was just saying, pretty girl privilege and whatever else. You know what I mean? Male privilege and all of these different things. It started there though, and because white people are mainstream society, that shit spread through them. They didn't like that shit, and then it kind of got spun negative. I think that's one aspect of it, and then another aspect of it, I think within the urban community specifically, is because a lot of us grew up not having shit. So the ones that did potentially got hated on, and they got called, oh, you act white now, or you know what I'm saying? All of these different things. So there was a certain segment of those suburban blacks who was like, no, I'm still down. I'm still, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of when privilege became a negative for them. Cause it's like, no, I'm still one of y'all. Like, you know what I mean? And so they'll maybe do extra things to like prove their blackness, quote unquote, to the people that are doing worse than them. So I think it's twofold. What do y'all think about that?
I see what you're saying. I think it's some people who do feel that way. I think it's, each individual person, but I understand that, like, basically, like, it's kind of the have and the have nots, like I said, and the people that have, see, that's the thing too. Like, unless you're in the 1%, there's always somebody you can look at and think they're more privileged than you. And it's like the people at the bottom obviously look at people that are privileged and be like, man, I'm getting a raw deal. What would I be able to do if I could go to said school, or if I had said trainers, or if I had a nutritionist at my house and I was able to eat properly? And, it's a lot of things that go with privilege. But to me, it's more of a psychological thing, because there are some people that are born with advantages, man. Like, I don't even like to look at it like privileges. It's advantages. And sometimes they get abused and it becomes like a negative thing. But then some things are just like beyond material stuff. Like, the elephant in the room. God bless us all. Like the elephant in the room, white privilege. Like that, that goes so deep and beyond like the surface level because it's basically ingrained in America. America was built on white privilege. And that stuff goes so deep and so far, you know, where it literally changes their whole interaction with everybody. Like the police, schools, everything. Like it literally, every aspect of their life is changed.
Here's what I want to say about that, and then I want to ask y'all how y'all approach this. There was a friend of mine, right? And we were sort of having the white privilege conversation. He's a white guy. And we were having the conversation. And this is what I hear from a lot of people who don't accept that as a thing. A lot of white people who don't accept that as being real. It's basically, these typically are white people who were minorities in the areas that they grew up in. So they personally feel like they were potentially the targets because they didn't belong. You know what I'm saying? If you're the only white person in an all black neighborhood, you stand out. It's like, what the fuck you doing over here? You know what I'm saying? I've been pulled over with 3 black dudes and a white dude in a car, and that was the reason we was pulled over. So I know that that's a thing. And then like they'll, you know, if they have criminal history or whatever, you know what I'm saying? They'll be like, I went to jail and blah, blah, blah. And nobody did this and XYZ for me or whatever. So typically my approach to those situations is I'm like, okay, do you think that your personal experience is more common with the overall minority experience in America or with other white people? And they typically say with the minority experience. And I'm like, right, because you were the minority in your environment, right? So extrapolate that. The minorities in the whole country, how do you think they're treated? A lot of times that'll kind of at least get their wheels turning like, oh, okay, maybe I've just been thinking about this wrong. So
No,
you
no.
guys have, like, what's your approach?
Like to me, when I hear people that are privileged in a certain way say that, it's just because they're an outlier. Like for whatever reasons, they may be like, you know, well, I was a minority here, or these things happened to me, but that still doesn't change the big picture. Meaning, like when you're in your car and you're driving past a policeman, you're a white male. I'm a college educated man. And when I'm riding past police, I'm just a black male. And that's just 2 totally different things. And it's no way around it. Like, I'm sorry, man. I don't like the majority. I don't like white people to try to act like America isn't America. It is what it is. It doesn't make them per se racist, but it does make them something when they don't stand up for racist system and they want to perpetuate and continue it. Like black men have to totally act different when they get pulled over. I don't really see white men as soon as they get pulled over, put their hands on the steering wheel or roll their window down and put their hands out the window like I don't have a gun. I don't see that.
Flaw, what's your thoughts, bro? How do you approach the situation, I guess is the question. Like if you're having a conversation with somebody about white privilege, how do you approach it?
Is the person white?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a very
it's somebody that you get along with, though. It's somebody who you know what I mean? You have good interactions with on a normal basis, but then this happens to come up 6 months later or some shit. And you're like, oh, wait.
Well, the conversation about for me is simple. Is awareness. Is are you even aware of the privilege that you were just able to have? It starts for me there, like, because I can't knock you for something that you weren't even aware of. But it starts with like, yo, you do understand that doesn't work like that for everybody else.
And what if they say,
and
yes,
that's only
it does.
but that's only if that person's complaining as well. Because if that, like, for example, it's like if that person doesn't complain about whether it goes that way or not, then I can't say that that person is relying on their privilege, quote unquote. Like the person who shows up to the club and expects to get in and get ushered to a table, who's also willing to stand there. He didn't say anything about it, even though that person had that expectation.
What you about to say, Twan? Go ahead.
I was about to say, I get it, but regardless of whether they realize it or rely on it, it still exists. I don't give a shit about none of that. Like, whether you take advantage of it or feel like you do it intentionally, it exists. It's a real thing. Like it's actually
No,
real.
I'm not saying that it's not. But what I'm saying
Oh
is
no,
how
no,
you
I'm not saying that you're not. I'm just speaking on my point that with my Caucasian friends and these topics come up, I don't make it about them. I make it about the generalities because that's what we're talking about. Like, bro, you have to understand that this is what it is. Like, I can name a million things and I don't even want to get on it because it kind of upsets me, but I can name a million things, bro. Like, there's literally studies of white people doing the same exact crime in the same district, and black and white people getting 2 different sentences.
Yeah, there's a few different studies. They call it the resume study, where you put a traditionally black name and a traditionally white name, and everything else is the same. The white name gets 50% more callbacks.
Man, how about this, man?
They do it with the sales. They did it with a sales thing on Amazon where they used a white hand and a black hand to sell the same product. The white hand got all the clicks. So there's mad studies like this.
Well, that's probably because it's more. Right now it's more white people than it is black people, and white people are psychologically swaying the other minority races to trust the white hand more than the black hand. So it goes a little deeper than that. Then 2, let's just talk about what privilege really does, man. Like it increases the wealth gap. And man, let's talk about some shit like this, man. It happens all the time with real estate, where you got black people having to take their pictures out of their house and having their white friends do the walkthrough. Like, if people don't see how fucked up that is, I don't know what else to say, bro. So you're literally telling me my home has more value because I'm white.
Do you think, and this is for both of y'all, do you guys just think that a lot of times, speaking specifically to white privilege, do you think a lot of the white people who reject that premise is because they just equate privilege with money? Because that's what I hear a lot. Like a lot of the default is, well, I grew up poor, or my dad did XYZ. So I feel like they a lot of times equate, and they don't consider all the other things that you said, like our police interactions and
I don't think it's none of that. They don't even
consider that. I don't think. But go ahead.
I don't think it's none of that. I think it's flat out lack of accountability, because once you acknowledge your privilege, you can no longer be ignorant.
But look at what I just said. I started my whole conversation off by saying I can't knock anybody who first is not aware.
I think in 2022 is no way that you can't be aware.
Well, I think
there's absolutely no way.
I believe that the truth is, you said it, truth is in the eye of the beholder. I believe that we live in isolated silos in the ways and what is acceptable and all of that shit is people are real life living in their own little.
I don't agree with that at all.
And
I don't agree with that it should be okay.
I don't even agree with you that you live in your site. Nobody is ignorant to what's going on in the real world. Like, at the end of the day, I think
that's an over exaggeration.
I don't think it's about what's going on. I don't think it's about what's going on. Like, for example, literally, I'll give you an example.
Who in America didn't hear the George Floyd story?
That's an outlier. We're gonna go with something.
No, it's not.
Hold on. Let's go with something.
No, it's not.
It wasn't an outlier. George Floyd's
Breonna Taylor.
George Floyd's death specifically changed more laws than a lot of other situations.
No, but see, the point I'm making is I'm talking national news. But like it's stories all the time about black people getting what people would consider what they call it, police brutality. To me, if you to me in 2022, if you're ignorant about certain topics, we went from the real world to certain topics. That's what I'm saying. Like, being aware of what is real to you is completely different than being aware of what's going on in the real world, because the real world to you is determined by what you perceive and what you decide to take in. So what I'm saying is these people don't have cell phones. They don't have television. They're just totally living in the wilderness.
No. But you and I have had multiple conversations about other things where there's plenty of people you get to not 100% control, because we do have ads and stuff like that, and people do push content to you that you didn't necessarily follow and all of that. But for the most part, you get to control your frequency.
And,
I don't know.
And I also think, like, sometimes I think because we're all from cities, you know what I'm saying? We all from the D. I live in Phoenix now. You live in LA. You still in the D. So it's like we're all in big cities, and we've spent the majority of our lives in big cities. There are literally some places that I've been to where, like, some of these agricultural and farming type people, like, they literally wake up, be outside all day, come in the house in the evening, maybe watch a show, and then wake up and do it all over again the next day. They really are tapped out of most of what's going on. Like, that sounds crazy, I know, because we're so tapped in. There are some people who really are oblivious to a lot of shit.
I'm gonna tell you why I don't agree with that, because I've been to a lot of rural areas. I've been to a lot of agricultural areas, and the truth be told, a lot of those places are set in the old ways where racism still exists.
Why do you think that is? But why do you think that is?
So, but listen to my point. Nigga, if you live in a town that racism still exists, how the fuck do you think you don't have privilege? So you trying to tell me the white people in the 50s who knew that black people couldn't drink after their water fountain, who knew that black people couldn't come into their restaurant, was unaware they had privilege?
I'll put it like
this. Get the fuck out of here, bro.
I'll put it like this. The same way you said you don't know if Bronny has privilege, even though the three of us know he's growing up in a mansion, rich ass daddy, all of that stuff.
See, we was playing on semantics. We were playing on semantics, meaning I know Bronny has advantages.
Example of a fact. I put Bronny out there as a.
You see what I'm saying? So
listen to what I'm saying. We were playing on the word semantics. I knew that he had advantages. We were just saying would they be privileges? At the end of the day, regardless of what you call it, when it comes to racial things, if you have an advantage because you're a certain race, that's a privilege, bro.
What I'm saying is there are certain pockets. You gotta think, right? Really think. Black people basically only live in the big cities for the most part. Like, we're not really in other areas like that. Yes, we are in little tiny dots here and there, but for the most part, we're in cities. So everywhere else is white people. There's whole
let me ask you this.
Hold on. There's whole cities and whole towns and villages and all of that shit of nothing but white people who have never interacted or seen or talked to anybody outside of white people. So what I'm saying is, yes, to us, that's obvious that, yeah, you got privilege based on your race. Like, that's obvious to us. But if you've grown up around nothing but you, how do you know that's a privilege?
Let me ask you this.
Awareness that Flaw's talking about.
Let me ask you this then. So do these places, do they not go to school? Do they not teach them history? Like,
they teach them bad history. You know,
magical people.
You know, in Texas that they removed slavery from the textbooks and they call it immigration.
I get
right?
that, right?
So if that's in the schools,
that just happened this year, though. That just happened this year, though.
But how many of these places do you think didn't update their textbooks since back then? You know what I'm saying?
Look, I ain't about to argue the schematics. My thought on it is, if you choose to be ignorant about some shit, that's your choice, because it's way too much information.
That's my point of contention with you, is I don't think it's always a choice.
No, it's definitely a choice. One thing you'll hear about me is, I'm gonna put this out there, I'm a Christian. The one thing my God gave me every day is that I have freedom of choice. Everything is a choice. Everything is a choice. Just like you can, just like it's people who don't, on West bumfuck side of the world, who may not know nothing about nothing, but it's information out there. If you choose to not pursue it, that's a choice. That's a choice, bro. Like, at the end of the day, that's a choice, because the point of the matter is,
I guess
when black people were slaves.
Let me give it to you a different way. Can I blame you for not looking up a word that you've never heard?
No, looking up a word.
I'm just using you use the example of you can look up whatever you want to look up. Can we hold a person accountable to look up something that they've never encountered?
Can you hold them accountable?
I use
I don't
the
know if you can
example
really.
of
I don't know if you can hold them accountable, right? But that doesn't mean that it's any less consequence and you're any less ignorant. Like at the end of the day, that's just like
That's
I
correct.
forgot who
That's where I
that.
agree
That's
with
just
you.
okay. That's just like the football player who was sitting outside and he called those gay men. I forgot the exact word he used.
I think
Queer.
it was the F word.
He called him. No, he called him queer. He didn't call him.
Mhm.
He didn't call him queer. And he literally said that queer is the Q in LBGTQ. So he thought he was okay for calling him queer, but he wasn't.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, I get you. And I guess the reason, because I actually agree with that last point that you just made. And that's the reason why I want to have this conversation, is because I'm not trying to give these ignorant white people a pass for nothing like that. What I'm trying to do is trying to figure out, like, because some people have the approach of, we don't need them, we can do everything ourselves, you know what I mean? But I'm of the impression of basically everything, all the progress that we've made in the country, we've had to rely on at least a certain percentage of white people. So to convince a certain segment of white people, the ones who can be convinced, the ones who actually may be good people and were just misled at some point, if we can convince those people, then that ultimately helps our cause, does it not?
I'm a little bit more radical in the sense that if white people want to be allies, I have no problem with it. I'm not prejudiced at all, but I do disagree that we need white people. We don't need them for shit. At the end of the day, if we kept our dollars to ourselves, they need us. That's a flat out fact.
Can you tell me any laws that were passed in the United States that white people didn't participate in on a positive?
Well, see, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't go off the laws because the Constitution was made by white people. Black people couldn't do nothing. They couldn't vote. They couldn't do nothing when the Constitution was made. At the end of the day, what I mean is go back to the 1920s and 30s when white people were super racist and didn't want nothing to do with black people. We did everything on our own. We built our own colleges, our own banks, our own schools, our own everything. I actually feel like once we start getting integrated is when progress slowed down. But that's just my personal opinion.
Flaw?
What you want me to say to that?
Respond.
What I'm supposed to say? It's true. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, no, in the name of us integrating, we did become less focused on ourselves. We became more focused on assimilating.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll give you that.
That was the mission. The mission became to assimilate instead of to empower what we had.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I can agree with that.
The shift in priority.
But I mean, so when I bring up the laws, like you stated, when the Constitution was written, you know, that was written by white people and it didn't apply to us, but it does apply to us now. So that's why I asked, like, you know, the laws that were changed, we weren't allowed to vote at one time. We are now. You know what I mean? There's a lot. We weren't allowed to own homes and property at one time. We are now. You know, there's a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? And I'm asking you, like, I would say those things are meaningful and they do mean something. So that's progress still. Would you, or does not?
I think it's fool's gold, because what it has allowed us to do is to think that we matter. And the truth of the matter is they integrated us in a system that wasn't built for us because they saw us building our own system. Like, you got to look at what's going on, man. Like, that's like you see somebody, you know, that's like companies that buy companies out all the time. Like, man, I don't even want to deal with them. I don't even want them to end up being our competitor. Let's just buy them out and make them think we gang, make them think we part of the same company. But really, we're going to just destroy them and shut their company down. It's the same psychological mind trick. Like, you see a group of people focusing on themselves, and then you see a group of people that work hard. And then you got to remember this, man. This is the part that they leave out of the history books. So many inventions, so many things were done by Black creative minds. So they're not stupid. They also knew that we had very talented people. And they're like, shit, if we let them to get shit going on their own, we might be at war for America. So let's get them the illusion and let's sell them this American dream that is slanted and they have way more advantages. Think about what you said. White people have been allowed to own land. It was a point in time, and I didn't grow up in that time. I don't even know if that's true, where you could just run and put a stake down and get a piece of land. Dog, think about the wealth that transfers down.
Yeah.
We couldn't even
100%.
read. Then niggas wonder why niggas don't like read now. You don't think that's some DNA trauma passed down? That niggas was killed for
Somebody
being
was
able to
getting
read?
beat. Yeah, exactly. Getting beat and killed for that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
For trying
Right.
to learn. Not for doing it and being good at
And then it makes me mad when I see some of the comments off my other post where I really was saying you shouldn't expect nothing from somebody, but motherfucking white people getting in the comments like everything is the same advantage. Man, shut the fuck up. Literally, all them people that posted them comments, shut the fuck up. You sound stupid. Y'all have so many advantages. If that's the case, ask any white person would they trade places with you.
You know what's another good question? Is everybody, and this is a slightly off topic, so we're not going to deep dive too much, but it's to touch on the point you just made, is the whole white replacement theory that's out there. You know, they saying basically black and brown people are going to overtake white people and they're scared of it, right? And the question is, why are they scared of that? Is it because minorities are treated differently? Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're going to end on a light note, though. All right. So, Twan, I want you to give me an example of black privilege.
I think the one privilege that comes from the Most High is just coolness. Black people are just cool as shit. We make everything cool. We literally make you give us anything, we gonna make it something. When we were slaves, they gave us the worst parts of the animals. We made it soul food. We take any type of instrument and give it rhythm. I just think we're cool, man. We're just cool people. I think that's the black privilege. It's like not to get in it because I'm not divisive. I don't want people to think I'm divisive. And just because I stand up for the truth doesn't make me divisive. But I just think that's one of the privileges we have as black people. It's just we just cool. Like you give us some shit, we're gonna make it hip. You give us some tattered, raggedy clothes, we're gonna figure out the way to make it cool. It's just and the one thing that I think is really cool about us is our perseverance. I ain't knocking no other race, but we're some persevering people, man.
I like that. Flaw, give me an example of black privilege.
People, this is terrible. Like, this is terrible. Like, I don't even understand what the fuck got me out here talking about. This is terrible. Most people will try your food.
That's a good one.
Most people will give your food a shot.
I'll definitely give you that one. And
Like,
to close it out, go ahead.
No, I'm thinking like most people will. I'm like that's a perplexing thing. Black privilege. I mean, I'll put these out there. Ladies have expectations of us as black males in the sexual department. That's a black privilege.
I know a black privilege for sure because I'm a football player. I can't hoop at all. I can't hoop at all. But every time I went to hoop, I was picked over white boys that could really hoop. I can't hoop. So it's just
that's black privilege.
But see, this is the thing that I'm saying. Even our privileges were born from negatives. Like white people had that expectation and a thing about us because of what they saw in the slave fields when they made us mate, and they just gave us genetically. I mean, that's just genetics. Like if you keep taking the two biggest men and women and strong, and you just keep making them have babies,
eventually you get Shaq.
Exactly.
I feel it, man. I think you know, just to close it out, I would say you know, our black privilege is, you know, definitely the ability to have people. I would say we're the most mimic culture in the world. Black Americans specifically, we are the most mimic culture in the world. We make, like you said, Twan, we make everything cool. Everybody wants to listen to our music. We dance good. We make great movies. We have the best actors in Hollywood. Like everything that we do, people want to be a part of it. People want to wear our clothes. They want to dress the way we dress. Everything. So that's I think. I think our black privilege is influence.
You want to know what's crazy about that though? When I really think about like how are we so many different things, it even comes from a negative. It's because we don't know what we were. Like most Black Americans don't even know what part of Africa they from. They don't know what they ate over there. They don't know what religion they was over there. We have no identity. So we start becoming influxes of all these different things and taking a little bit here and a little bit there and making it a gumbo of blackness that was just cool. Because we literally didn't know and couldn't go back and identify. Like an Italian American can literally go back to old Italy and get reinforced what they are. This is what we do. This is what we about. Same thing with a Chinese American. How many Black Americans even can do that?
No, we could just go back to our hood. That's about the farthest back we can go.
Sad.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. But you know, we making it happen though. You know, we
keep persevering. That's what I keep telling you.
And that's
why. I really think that's what drives the racist white people. Not all white people. I specifically said the racist ones. I think that's what drives them insane because they've created so many programs and so many disadvantages, and Black people are still here.
Man, because grandma kitchen was just too fire, bro.
It's like we still here.
Can't do nothing with that.
Like you coming out of grandma's kitchen, between the lessons at the table that got taught to you, the food that got put in your belly, the love that got poured into your soul. Like, what you mean? Of course we persevere. What you mean?
I ain't gonna lie though, fellas. I ain't gonna lie. I think they finally figured something out though. Like, I'm gonna leave that alone. I don't even want to speak that on camera though, honestly, but it's cool.
Hey, man, we're gonna keep persevering like we've been doing. You know what I mean? And if y'all here for the journey, we appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? And this is OTI, open to interpretation. What's your thoughts on privilege, man? Are you a white person that has white privilege? Do you want to speak about it? Are you a Black person who can name some other Black privileges? How does privilege affect you? Let us know in the comments section. Make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe to the channel. This is OTI, open to interpretation, right here on the Ethos Media Network. We'll see you next week. Peace.